I'm Vince Corzine, coming to you from Enjoyer Productions studio in New York. Let's review a little bit about Supernova, what we've been talking about in the last 4 videos. This is video 5. We talked about a detailed outline for Supernova. We talked about 3 lines moving at different speeds for clarity so they don't get in each other's way. The trombones moved at a medium speed. The saxes move at a little faster speed, and of course the trumpets and harmoniumutes moved at a slower speed, not having a definite line but more of a diffused sound for harmoniumutes. We created tension by adding lines one at a time, a la Beethoven. We did layers, coming along with layers, and increased the volume. We had trumpets and harmons creating a sonority for color, a sheen, and scene over the whole mist coming over the whole thing. We had interludes that developed, leading to solos. We had a modulation to sustain interest and add energy to the piece. This segment, I want to show how I voiced the brass and the saxophones. Trumpets and harmons, I use clusters. Now clusters are minor second dissonances in the inner parts, very diffused sound. A cluster could be in a C minor chord, you can have a C, D, E flat, and an F right together, and it could make a very interesting sound. And if, of course, with harmons, everything spreads the sound, so you don't hear the individual notes, you just hear a cluster of sound. The lead trumpet is usually voiced and forced above the second trumpet. I find that this adds maximum resonance whenever you have brass, and particularly trumpets and saxophones, lead alto also, voiced and forced gives a more contemporary ring to the sound. A minor second between the top 2 voices is very jarring to the ear. If you have a singer, and I write for vocalists a lot, and you have the lead alto player playing a B and the singer singing like an A minor 9 chord, and you have the alto player playing a B and the singer singing a C, that singer's going to turn around and look at me, the orchestrator, and say, you wrote a wrong note. See? So you have to make sure that the top note of every section goes along with the melody and creates an interval that is good and not jarring. Saxophones, trombones, and strings, I try to make sure that the top note of each section sounds good with each other. Otherwise, they're going to have a real problem. A B against a C and an E against an F is not a happy thing in outer parts. In inner parts, crunches we call them, they can do very well if you have good ears. Let's listen to the first cut with trumpets and harmoniumutes. And on this first cut, you'll notice the 9th is added to all minor 7th chords for more dissonance. Trumpet 5 supports the lead trumpet at the lower octave. I feel that any time the lead trumpet goes above concert B flat, you should have somebody like another trumpet doubling him for added resonance octave lower. Let's listen to the first cut. The second example is full brass section with high tension chords. Now high tension chords means plus 9s, flat 9s, plus 11, 13ths, and so forth. Notice that the root is omitted and is played by the bass player. You do not need roots in dominant 7th chords. Now you're going to say to yourself, well, Vince, suppose I have a song and it has a G7 chord and there's a G in a melody. I mean, the root's in a melody, what do? Well, my answer would be to make it a 13th. Make it a 13th. Like if you have a G in the top, put F-A-B-E underneath it. F-A-B-E will make it a 13th. Otherwise, you have a very square chord if you make it a G7 chord. Nobody uses dominant 7s in jazz anymore unless it's a modal piece. You use 9s, 11s, flat 9s, 13s, plus 5. Now on a C minor 11 chord, there's an organ sound. To me, it sounds like an organ. Why does it sound like an organ? Well, there's a lot of fifths and roots in the chord. All right, a lot of fifths and roots in the chord. That gives you a more organ type sound. Now a mid cluster, a cluster we talked about it like a cluster of grapes would be notes together. If you have a D, an E flat, and an F in the trumpet 2, 3, and 4, you're going to have a dissonance between a half step and a whole step. And it's going to sound great if they can play it in tune. Now sometimes high school students have trouble hearing that, but they can do that eventually. When you get a D, E flat, and F, you get a cluster in their voices. Outer voices, watch your minor seconds. Very dangerous. In the A minor 6 to the E7 suspended, there's a lot of resonance because there's force between the trumpet 1, 2, and 3. Force, as I said, give a contemporary ring to the song. Let's listen to the example. Now remember, as I said before, that the fourth trumpet supports the lead an octave lower. This is good, especially when a trumpet goes above concert B flat, above the staff. In the final sustained chord, the ninth is added for extra resonance. You get a D and an E grinding together. And I love that sound. I think dissonance is very, very good, as long as it eventually resolves the consonants. Let's look at the trombone section for a minute. Trombones sound great in close and open position, just as much, very much like cellos sound. When I write for cellos, I write them either way, and they sound wonderful. Trombones sound very good. They sound close. If you want Stan Kenton, you write them in 5-part or 4-part open harmony. Let's listen to the third CD at this point. Notice that example 3 had the ninth added to the minor seventh for bite. In the F major 7, the root is missing. It's played by the bass. You don't always need the root in a chord. Someone else can play it somewhere else. Notice the dissonant minor seconds between the trombone 2 and 3. In the C minor major 7 chord, the root anchors the sound. The C in the fourth trombone against the B in the second trombone creates a powerful dissonance. And again, I say I love the inner sound. The last A minor 7 chord is a cluster chord with intervals of a major second, minor second, and a major third. I'll say that again. The last A minor 7 chord is a cluster chord. It has intervals of major second, and major third with a ninth added. A straight A minor 7 voicing would be too mild for this chart. Now let's go to the saxophones. The saxophones can be voiced in many ways. Let's look at a few ways that people have done it. They may not cover all the ways, but I'll cover most of them. A four-way close with the lead doubled an octave lower is in fast passages in the 1930s and 1940s, and it's called a super sax voicing, where you have everything close together and the lead part is doubled an octave lower. That's very good for fast moving. Four-way close, take the second voice and drop it an octave. It makes it a little more mellow, especially when the saxes go a little higher. When the saxes go even higher, okay, you have four-way close, second and fourth voices dropped an octave, and this is more like Thad Jones would write with the Mel Lewis Band. Okay, so that would be four-way close, second and fourth voices drop an octave. Clusters. Now clusters, I said, are notes that are B and C, C, D, E flat, right next to each other. Okay. Thad Jones, Bob Brookmeyer, and Gil Evans are noted for having cluster voicings. Now, open voicings are good for slow ballads. Depth and richness, organ sound. Stan Kenton was a master of this. Let's look at unison. Now, unison is a pure sound where Bill Holman and fast bebop lines were usually written in that way. Then you take unison octaves with Bill Holman and Rob McConnell, and you get beautiful sax sounding octaves going around, usually 3 on the top and 2 on the bottom. Jerry Mulligan is also another example of beautiful line writing, and of course my teacher Jimmy Giuffre is an example also. When you get to thirds, sax is playing in thirds, you kind of think of Billy May and all the stuff he wrote, which was very interesting at the time. And then there's fourths, and you have Duke Ellington, Woody Herman, and you have the Charlie Barnett Band way back in the 30s and 40s, and then you have a mixture of all of them together. And you have plenty of choices. Let's listen to saxophone voicings in the fourth example. Notice that the articulation in alto 1 is the same for all 5 saxes, even though I just marked it in alto 1. Normally, if I copied the parts out, I would write it for all, so it would be the same. Four-way close with second voice dropped an octave is a very good way to have the saxes play, and you hear that on the example. Next to last chord is an A minor 9 with a B against a C, and boy, that has some bite. But it really sounds good because it's in, again, like we said, in the inner voices, not the outer voices. The last chord, I have a force between the alto 1 and alto 2, which adds a nice contemporary ring and resonance. The last chord resolves to a dissonant F major 7 chord. In example 2, we have an A minor 6-9 chord. Three dissonances in one chord. A B against a C, an E against an F sharp, and an A against a B. This chord has a lot of edge to it. Now in the final E7 plus 9 plus 5, you have a G against a G sharp. Now you want to keep them separated. You want the plus 9 on the top and the third on the bottom. You got the G on the top and the G sharp on the bottom, or near the bottom. And the Barry moves in contrary motion, which is very interesting and adds a nice sound. Another thing I would suggest is that you keep high tension notes high in the chord. Plus 11, 13, plus 9, etc. You want to keep them up in the chord, not way down in the third and fourth trombones. In the final video, you will hear a performance of Supernova.